the busy agent, the agent who is selling and, who's selling 100 homes a year in your neighborhood, the reality is they're probably on the back end. They probably have a different agent that's coming out to the house to speak with you and have conversations, a different agent that's running comparables. They have a transaction coordinator where most of your conversations are going with them. If you're a buyer, they probably have a showing agent or a buyer's agent, so you're not really in contact with them. They have an arm of their business. That person is servicing you. You're not actually working with the person who's selling 100 plus homes a year.
Today's podcast guest got me with this quote. I have been listening since before I got my license, and I still listen 400 plus closed transactions later to pick up nuggets. He's closing a lot of business, AKA busy, and he's still enriching the noggin to continue to grow his business. And sadly, the people that need to hear that probably aren't listening in the first place. But for those of you that are, I want you to use this as some inspiration, because today's guest, we're bringing him on today because he's succeeding when many of you aren't. And I think it's safe to say that probably, gosh, far less than 10% of the industry is growing and thriving when everybody else is questioning their career move right now. And so it's I feel like it's our duty to bring you as much inspiration, strategy, ideas to help you grow your business. And that is why we're bringing Nick Harris on today. So Nick, welcome, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Absolutely. And by the way, Nick, also, so we get contacted by a lot of potential guests, as you probably can imagine. And Nick, I noticed in the messaging, after you got ignored several times, which by the way isn't you, it's us. We just get millions of messages, right? You sent a video, and it's not rocket science. This isn't new. Video's not the new thing anymore. But so many of you still aren't doing things like that, and it's little things like that that make people like Nick stand out. And I imagine probably goes a long way into why you are thriving and succeeding in today's what most would consider challenging markets. So Nick Harris out of Royal Oak, Michigan, serving the broader Detroit area. Nick, tell us who the hell you are and kind of what led you to the business and where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you pointing that out. That video was actually a play out of my playbook as I'm just trying to get a hold of leads as well, sellers, buyers, whatever the case may be. So I just turned that into getting a hold of you. But I'm excited to be here. Yeah, so I have been in the industry. This June will actually be 4 years. Over the last 3 years, I've closed an average of 102 transactions each of the last 3 years. I got into real estate with just general interest, but on the investment side of real estate, long-term rental, buy and hold. So it started, back in high school, was interested in just hearing more about what real estate had to offer from an investment standpoint, passive income, started to self-educate, books, podcasts, YouTube University. Went to college, got my degree in something completely different, like most people do, and played college baseball there. Built some good relationships out of college. I was a strength and conditioning coach. I work primarily with high school, college athletes, some professional, very few, but some. And around the time of did some personal training around the time of COVID, obviously that industry took a little bit of a hit. And so I started to think about what could I do that would be real estate related. So my first job in real estate was actually for a mortgage lender, and I was an account executive there. So I was on the lending side of things. It was business to business, speaking with loan officers, loan brokers. And I wasn't on the actual transaction, really seeing the day to day of how it can impact buyers and sellers and like the actual human on the other end of that transaction. So got sent home. We got sent home. My group did. Someone got COVID, so I took that as a 2 week time frame for me to study for my license, pass my exam, and after that 2 weeks, went back to the office and got a promotion. Long story short, ended up quitting, going into real estate full time. And I've been in real estate as a real estate agent full time. Again, this June will be 4 years, and took everything that I had learned from this podcast, from other podcasts, from books, from YouTube, and took it and said, okay, what do I feel like I can implement? What can I put into my business right away? And in addition to some of the other, characteristics or skills that I already have, and how can I really hit the ground running? At the time, my wife and I, we were engaged at the time, didn't have any kids, no real risk. So I felt like, we were okay financially. I could do this. I could make this career jump. And so I jumped into it full steam ahead. And that brings us to where we are today.
Cool. So let's obviously jump ahead, and obvious. I think notable is the fact that you've only been in the business for less than 4 years, and that is, I think, inspirational in some lights, and to others they might look at that and be dejected. There's a lot of agents that have been around the block for 10, 15, 20 years, and again, they've struggled to evolve or struggled to grow, and so you're young, clearly, based on just what you've described to me. I'm not going to guess your age, but I know you were on a top 30 under 30 list, so you've got to be somewhere in the vicinity of upper 20s, maybe low 30s at this point. And the question that I would first have for you is, when you made the shift and you got into real estate, first of all, how well did you do in your first year? And second of all, what would you define or articulate as the strategies that were really the catalyst to you really getting deep and growing business?
Yeah, so to start, that first year started off slow. I did walk into, it was kind of good timing. I had a couple of family members that were looking to buy or sell. So I kind of walked into an opportunity, good timing to be able to help them buy and sell. They obviously took the leap of faith and wanted to help me get my career up and running, but it was a little bit slow, right? It was still getting into what do I need to be doing on a daily basis, weekly basis? What does an actual transaction look like? How do I open up a lockbox, right? Like everybody from the very beginning is trying to figure out the bare minimum before you can actually go full steam ahead with lead generation or follow up or whatever that sequence might be for you. Within my first calendar year, I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but it was somewhere between 60 and 70 transactions within that first calendar year, which I realize again is an anomaly, right? It doesn't happen. And well, it doesn't happen often. One thing that I prioritized really early on was having a daily schedule, not having any gaps, making sure that I had something for whatever those working hours were going to be. And it could be argued, obviously real estate agents work around the clock, but for my lead generation, my outbound outreach, trying to get in contact, whether it's over the phone, face to face, meet in person, network, I had specific times blocked out of I am going to be working in this time. And the time outside of that is for showing properties or having other conversations, going golf, whatever it might be. But my day was completely filled out ahead of me. And I was going to stick to it. And so it came down to figuring out what does that structure look like. And I think everyone is a little bit different. Some people prefer one lead generation source over another, right? Or they prefer a couple and where you might be more belly to belly. You like the networking, you like going to events, you like holding events instead of getting on the phones and cold calling or going door knocking, right? And so I tried to figure out what was number one. I did not go to what I liked. I went to what I felt like was working for other agents, what was actually working in the marketplace. So if somebody can do it, I have to be able to do it or figure it out. And then where did I feel like my skills or my personal character and my characteristics, what would I be good at? Not what would I like to do? And over time, even though what I have found is that even though I up front I didn't like at the very beginning, I didn't like making outbound calls, I found that I was fairly good at it. Like I could have conversations with people over the phone. It didn't bother me to get shut down 1 out of every 10 or get cussed at or whatever it might be. It didn't bother me. I found that I was good at it. And over time I started to like it because I caught the skill on and I started to get better at it. So I don't know if that it's kind of a long-winded answer, but that answer is what I did my first year and kind of what I can draw it back to.
What were you calling?
So my calling was primarily what would be considered circle prospecting, neighborhood dialing, or like a geo farming. So I really utilized, if I had a listing, I was going to capitalize and get another listing out of that neighborhood. Like for me, it was a non-negotiable. I had to get at least one more listing out of that neighborhood. Why would I not use that listing as an opportunity to sell someone else on my service to be able to help them sell their home?
So
So
let's unpack that one for a second. You're new. You have very little experience. You don't have a resume to say I've sold X number of houses. You didn't have a plethora of signs in neighborhoods. Did that listing come because it was family? Let's just talk about the first few listings. Where did
Yep.
they come from?
Yep. So it was split. So if I had to say, like, let's say my first 10 listings, I would say it was probably split between um, 10 listings, five were my SOI, whether it's family, friends, relatives, someone that already knew, liked, and trust me. And the other five were from outside of that with my outbound intentional outreach. And so what I always tell agents, especially when they don't have the numbers behind them, keep in mind that the person on the other end of the conversation, whether it's in person, door knocking, whether it's over the phone, whether it's you're running direct ads, whether it's through social media, the person on the other end of that conversation, although it is a piece of the puzzle for them to know that you're experienced, you have knowledge, it really boils down to what do they want? What is their current situation? They don't care too much about your numbers. People can fabricate that, and ultimately, people just don't truly care what that is. They just want whatever their mission is, whatever their goal is. They want whoever has their best interest at heart. And so I took that, and for me, it was how can I build rapport, get known, liked, and trusted with that person based on their goals, what they want to do. And what I used to my advantage, especially early on for any of the newer agents, what I used to my advantage was, and I would sell people on this. The busy agent, the agent who is selling and who's selling 100 homes a year in your neighborhood, the reality is they're probably on the back end. They probably have a different agent that's coming out to the house to speak with you and have conversations, a different agent that's running comparables. They have a transaction coordinator where most of your conversations are going with them. If you're a buyer, they probably have a showing agent or a buyer's agent, so you're not really in contact with them. They have an arm of their business. That person is servicing you. You're not actually working with the person who's selling 100 plus homes a year, right? That's different than how I operate my business now, but that's the reality throughout the industry, is that even though that you think you're working with that top producer in your area, and the reality is you're not. So the benefit of working with me is I am going to give you attention day in and day out. You're working directly with me. You know what to expect from me every single day and every minute of the day. My job is to communicate with you as clearly and as quickly as possible. And my responsibility is to you. I don't have 20 other clients that I'm working with. I have you and maybe one or two others. And so you're going to get all of my attention.
Hmm. Which is ironic because now you're probably the guy that you sold against, and now you have to flip it around. So we'll circle back to that later, um, because I want to go back to, the beginning. And so as you and I assume your family just there was a just a level of trust. It was just like we're going to give you a shot. Was that kind of the mentality?
So for family, relatives, close friends, that was kind of the mentality behind it. Was, there was a piece of, they wanted to see me succeed and do well, and wanted the best for me in this new, industry and this new business venture. So there was that piece, but obviously you're still dealing with people's biggest assets in most cases, where they're either putting a ton of money down on a home, or they're selling a home, or they have all of their liquid capital or soon to be liquid capital in it, and so they want to get the most out of it. So there, I feel like there's still a barrier there. You still have to have the experience and knowledge, and I felt like for me, again, that came with the self-education podcasts like this, books, YouTube, just learning from and having a mentor or a coach. That's something that really helped me as well, is having a coach and having a system to go off of on the front end of the conversations, and what to be saying, how to do the actual transaction, so that you're not only building confidence in yourself, but you're able to relay that to the client at the end of the day.
Yeah. So as you had those initial conversations with both family and, maybe clients that you seeked out on your own, maybe it was through circle prospecting, what were you pitching to them? Because, as far as uh, this is why you should hire me to list your home and why I'm going to sell your house. We've got the one piece, which is you get all of me. But, you know, uh, a seasoned listing agent is going to talk about maybe certain marketing strategies that they've employed over the years that they can pull back from and use as examples. Maybe they have a big social media following, or they have analytics that they can say, we're going to get a lot of eyeballs on your content. What did you use?
Yeah, so obviously again the piece of that was you're gonna get me, only me, and I have the time to be able to spend as much time as you need on this. I think the way that I structured it and made people realize that I was a good option and the option was again, I turned it away from myself personally and the lack of experience that I had. I did have some knowledge, so I think that's number one is make sure you have knowledge. We should be able, even as a new agent, you should be doing market research within your area, specific to wherever that buyer or seller is looking. Like do the work on the front end so that you can actually bring market statistics and data. As a real estate agent, that's something that is our duty to know and have an understanding on. But again, that was a small piece of it. I think the biggest reason that people trusted me was because I made it about them. Again, it wasn't about Nick as the agent and how I can best help you capitalize. It's how can I make you the hero of your own story and achieve your own goals and the things that you want to have done. And the conversation was more around letting them speak. People love
Mm.
to, speak about themselves. Let them speak. Listen to one of the things that, and I don't know who said it, but it really stuck with me is listen to what people mean, not what they say. And so I go into every conversation with what is this person trying to get across to me? What do they mean by their goal is to do X, Y, or Z? And I really dig deep into that. And it's almost this conversation of self-realization for them, and they're almost selling themselves on me just by being the listening ears and really trying to understand what do you mean by what you're saying, because the more they feel like you understand the objective and the goal that they're trying to get to, the more they're going to trust you and feel like you're knowledgeable in that. So I felt like I tried to flip that sales conversation, if you will, to have them spill the beans and self-select me based on my understanding and my attention to detail of where they were looking to go.
Almost, correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing you saying is you made it less transactional and you made it personal. You pulled on emotions, and I love that you said that because I think it's a lost art. I think one of the several reasons why our industry has such a negative, consumer sentiment anymore is partially that. You've had these coaches in the industry that have effectively been training agents to make it transactional, and now we've become this industry of used car salesmen. And again, you mentioned it. We're selling. You're selling the biggest asset they'll ever have in their entire life. So an asset that they've made incredible memories in.
Mhm.
And for many cases, I just did it. Like it's very tearful to sell that house that you kids were born in and you have created memories. And I love that you did that, and I think a lot of agents can take a lot from that. um, would you say that was the catalyst? That was probably the beside. So those were your two things, two big things. You get all of me, and you let them talk. I mean, for lack of a better way to describe it, that's a
Yeah.
great way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's you get all of me. I'm 100% in on what you're doing. I'm not overwhelmed. You're not getting somebody else. And then just, yeah, I mean, like you said, for lack of better words or something, you know, on a deeper level, it's simply just letting them talk, having them come to the realization of what they're actually looking for and having them know, like, and trust you, build rapport from there. And then from there, it's, the better that you provide the service. Again, it's not transactional. It's not get under contract, close, collect paycheck. It's every communication along the way, where the better the experience is, the more likely for repeat and referral business. And that's really, most agents, when you think about repeat, I don't know I think the most recent statistic is that most people live in their home for anywhere between 7 to 9 years. And maybe that's gone up over the last couple of years. But most people on average stay in their home for 7 to 9 years. So if you're going to expect your business to grow off of repeat, well, that means for most agents when they start, they're not getting that second transaction from that client for almost a decade. Right.
Hmm.
So what really becomes important is the repeat, or what really becomes important is not the repeat, but the referral. And that all comes down to how did that individual or that family feel during the transaction, not only before, but during and after. How special did you make them feel? How smooth did that transaction go? Because anytime that they talk real estate, they have a friend, a family member, anybody that they run into, you want to be top of mind.
Yeah. Before we move off of this, and I want to move over to circle prospecting, is there anything? This resonates with me. I love what you're saying. Even in a leadership role, it's been one of my what I would call keys to success with employees, which is again making it about them, and rather than over talking them or always wanting to interject something that happened to you, which then quickly moves it away from them. Is there any specific style or suggestion? So if somebody's listening to this and they're hearing what you're saying, but they're not understanding how to, what is your best advice on how to make it all about them? What does that mean?
Yeah, so for me, what I constantly try to keep in mind is that phrase of listen to what people mean, not what they say. It's very easy to stay surface level with what people are saying. But if you're intentionally trying to hear or interpret what they mean, that usually involves going a couple of layers deep, or it involves more questions, gives them more opportunity to open up and have conversation. Listening to trying to hear what people mean, not just what they're saying, is what I try to do on a daily basis and within every conversation that I have. And that's completely reframe my thought process. And I hope that helps and kind of, you know, it's a short phrase that we can always remember before you go into a conversation. Okay, I hear what they're saying. What do they mean? I hear what they're saying. What do they mean? And if you don't know, ask questions. Dig deeper. It's okay to ask questions. And again, people want to talk about themselves, and I think that that's how you get people to open up.
It's good. This is good. This is a good conversation. Now, as I mentioned before, I want to get back to circle prospecting. And, it's something that you mentioned was, and this isn't just for those that are in the beginning phases of their career. This is applicable to everyone, and probably again something that a lot of agents possibly just either overthink or don't execute effectively when you actually have a listing or an opportunity to circle prospects. So tell us kind of how it all works in Nick's world.
Yeah, so I use circle prospecting in a handful of different scenarios. So let's talk about listings first. So around listings, I use circle prospecting, and for those who have the time and do not have the money, you're going to be the suggestion would be you're the one that's spending however long of a time period you have, whether it's a couple minutes, couple hours a day. If you have the time but you don't have the money to hire someone, do it yourself. Get the experience, do it yourself. If you don't have the time and you do have the money, this might be something that you hire out to an ISA or a VA or someone to do the calling on your behalf. So it fits the mold for everybody. But like you said, I think most agents are missing this opportunity with not only their listings, but also their buyers to get more listings and to get more buyers. We need to, wherever you're working, you have the opportunity, wherever your listings are, whatever your buyers are, you have you're putting yourself in a position to be an authority figure for that neighborhood. So we need to capitalize on that. You might have a small window of opportunity, right? So when it comes to circle prospecting, I call around my listings when we're in coming soon status, when we just listed, when we go pending, and when we sell, when it finally closes. 4 different opportunities for the coming soon and the just listed. It's a really good opportunity to not only win more listings, because now you're using this to pitch potential sellers while you're sitting at their dining room table to say, this is a marketing mechanism or strategy or tool that I use that other agents are not. I call around your neighborhood because oftentimes the buyer for your home is not the one that's active on Zillow, not the one active on a search with another real estate agent. It's the buyer who's reached out to your neighbor and said, hey, if there's ever a home for sale in your neighborhood, let me know. So I want to get in front of that buyer and that neighbor to help bring you a buyer. When people are in the thought of real estate or potentially buyer, seller, thinking about selling, what's my home worth, they're going to pick up on those conversations that they otherwise wouldn't have, and they would have just walked right past. So now it's another opportunity for a referral. So coming soon, just listed, pending and sold. These are 2 opportunities to now pitch as a potential listing or being their listing agent, because now you have market data. You can go to them and say, we went under contract in X amount of days. We got X amount of offers. We had X amount of showings. We had this many people through the open house. We're under contract for X percentage over asking price. There's still a ton of buyers in your neighborhood. Obviously we can only select 1 of 5 or 1 of 10 offers. That means there's still buyers out there right now. No pressure. I'm just curious if there's a number that would make sense for you to consider selling, even if it was off market, or is it something that you're not considering moving for a specific time frame, right? That's when I start to put in the listing and the selling process. So that's pending, and same thing for sold. For my buyers, I use circle prospecting when I go pending with a buyer and it's an area that I would like to work, whether based on price point or geographic location. And then when we sell, it's the same idea. I'm just relaying information, market data based on my buyer who's gone under contract. And now I can be viewed as an authority figure and have some experience and knowledge within their neighborhood or within their area.
You made that simple, right? You had a good excuse. You don't have to be, you don't necessarily have to be articulate or eloquent or a natural salesperson to make these phone calls. And it was very structured based upon where you were in the process of selling the other home. Now, did you do anything with, so now you've done this, you've established this quote unquote rapport, and probably in many cases, the rapport equated to a bunch of voicemails, but they now know about you, right? Did you incorporate any sort of follow up once all of that was done and gone and put them into some sort of automation, or how did you handle that?
Yeah, so a little bit different for every situation, right? But let's say it's somebody that I actually had a conversation with. I got some type of feedback one way or another, whether they told me they were interested and they gave me a timeline, whether they told me they're not interested, kick rocks, or whether they said, hey, we're not thinking about it right now. We don't really have a timeline, but reach out in 12 months. From there, what I always do is, and I have a setting in my, everybody, if you have an iPhone, I don't know about Androids, but if you have an iPhone, you can go into your settings, go to keyboard, you can type out an auto text, put in a short phrase. You could just put in, 1A, and you can type out a phrase of what it's going to send. So it's really short. Anytime I got off the phone with somebody where there was any potential interest, any conversation, anything where I'm like, they didn't cuss me out to get me off the phone, I send a text message right away to them saying, hey, this is Nick with EXP Realty or whatever brokerage you're a part of, however you want to claim yourself. This is Nick. Thanks for taking a few minutes to chat with me. I just wanted to send you a text message. That way you had my contact information. If you're ever considering buying or selling, or you know of anybody who is, feel free to reach out. But more importantly, if you're ever looking for vendors in your market, whether you need a painter, a plumber, an electrician, utilize me as a resource and feel free to reach out. I'm happy to give a recommendation. And then I jump into two things that I do on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. I call it my social five. So my social five is I'm sending a text message or a video text message to 5 people within my sphere of influence every single day, Monday through Friday. Easiest way to do this is to go where you have the most contacts, whether that's your phone or maybe it's your Facebook friends, whatever it might be, whatever platform you have. And I'm sending them a personalized text message, ideally a video text message. It's just a bit more personal is what I found. It's a quick 10, 15 seconds long, depending on what I know about their life. And it's nothing to do with real estate. It's just being a person, just connecting. What I have found is that, so I do it through my phone contacts and I go A to Z. I found that at 5 a day, I'm now sending a text message or a video text message to everyone within my contacts once a quarter. So at a minimum, I'm having a conversation, checking in on people. How's life? How's the family? Have you been out golfing? Whatever it might be, once a quarter.
I love it. Now, what about content creation? Any strategies there?
Yeah, so for me, I try to be relevant on social media, and it started as wanting people just to know that I'm in the industry, right? As a new agent, I wanted people to see my social media and realize, oh, Nick's a real estate agent. I haven't talked to Nick in a year, but I'm seeing he's doing real estate. That was like number one. And then it became more informational, right? So I have a mix of, anytime that I treat my stories as kind of like a day in the life. So if I'm on a showing appointment or if I'm headed to a listing appointment or I just had something crazy or I just saw, a one-off situation, like my stories I kind of treat as like a day in the life. And then my feed on any platform is going to be more informative. And right now I'm working with a lot of real estate agents to help them grow and scale their business and get to where they want to be. So you'll notice on my social media platforms now, it's a mix of not only helping buyers and sellers with informational content, market statistics, general information, but it's also helping other real estate agents get to where they want to be. As far as I get this question a lot too, is how much do you spend on personal versus professional posts? So I've always been one to I've kept one platform for both. My personal is my professional. I don't have different accounts for either. I like people to see both. They resonate for different reasons. And I would say, if I don't intentionally do it this way, but if I had to guess, I would say my social media content is 90% professional, 10% personal.
I'm going to ask you a question because social is my jam, right? And so And there is no one way to skin the cat. So I really actually love the way you answered that question, because part of the reason why I think consumer sentiment is low around our industry, because most agents, they feel forced to have to use social. You see the memes now. It's like, I got my real estate license. I didn't realize I had to be a professional marketer, right?
Yeah.
Um, that is the way of the world now, right? Because of social. But most agents do run to social kicking and screaming. So they go there and say, well, if I'm going to do it, all I'm going to do is real estate. And then to the consumer who is not on social to buy a home, right? That's why they go to Zillow for mindless entertainment, puppy dogs, makeup, cooking, golf, hunting, you name it, right? And they stumble upon us real estate agents. But one could argue consumers have become annoyed because it's hard to get away from. And so most, it's probably a rough, it's a loose term. A lot of agents have really screwed this up, but it's working for you. And so I want to make sure I'm saying that, because although I'm telling the average agent who comes to me and says, I don't know what to post about, my first answer is, well, they don't need another just listed. They don't need another just sold. They don't need another closing photo. They don't need another awards post. They just want a reason to connect and resonate with you. You're doing it differently. 90-10. To the average agent, I'm telling them 90-10 the other way, but it's working for you. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I want to point that out, that there isn't one way to skin the cat. This is working for you. And with that little preach session, what would be your reaction to that when I say, Nick, the world actually wants more of that cute little daughter of yours?
Yeah.
That beautiful wife of yours.
Yeah.
They want to know about what you're doing in your free time. How would you react to that?
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think everything that you said is true. I think one of the pieces that I try to fit in, even though my content is, it could air 90% professional, 10% business. I agree with you in the fact that people go to social media for different reasons, right? But primarily entertainment and for some relaxation, right? It's a way to unwind. And so to go
Yeah.
on and to see the ads and to see the sponsorships and to see the just listed and just sold. So I never deter people from doing the just listed, just sold, but what I say in the way that I operate it is tell a story where it's entertaining within that. So you still want to give people a reason to actually watch and see. And so whether it's your own story or whether you're telling a story of a client that you helped either sell or buy or just closed on a property, give the potential viewer or listener the story along with it so it is entertaining. You're not just saying, "Hey, look at me, I just sold another home." Make that client the hero so that they can say, "Oh, what happened? What happened with this situation? There was a struggle here. Here was the resolution. Here's the outcome. Here's what's going to come next." And it's an entertaining path to follow. So I completely agree with you. I do think that a lot of agents intentionally or unintentionally, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, post content where it is the just listed, the just sold. It's not entertaining. It's just sending out the awards. But the more personal that you can make it, and the better story that you can tell. And I think that's what social media is coming down to, is being a storyteller. I think that's what sales is too. Being able to actually tell a story within that to try to capture best of both worlds is what I'm after. But I completely understand what you're saying, and I agree.
I love that you're having success with it. And I think I would also probably point out to the agent who's listening to this, and I didn't know this about Nick before we started, but he told me that one of his avatars is educating other agents. I know based upon his affiliation that is one of his avatars. And for most real estate agents who are in the business of just to sell a home, you need to understand that, because the problem I would say that most real estate agents have on their social profiles in general is that if they actually took the time to peruse their friends and followers, they would find that probably greater than 50% are other real estate agents. Why is that? Because the algorithm understands who you are and wants and and basically lumps you into this pool. And the reality is it's not serving you. It's a complete waste. And I'm not saying go through and clean out your friends and followers unless you're in Nick's position. But what you should probably be more intentional about is figuring out a way to connect with people in and around your geographic area, the people that have like-minded interests as you, your friends and family, using socials as CRM. I mean, everything that you listed today, Nick, which if you're listening to this and you're not taking notes, so you're on the treadmill, you're driving, I'd stop. Well, I wouldn't stop. Don't stop. Finish listening to us. But I'd go back and I'd jot all this stuff down. And Nick just gave you his damn playbook. And this is a sub 4 year playbook to get to where he's gotten. How many of you listening to this can say, whether you're a seasoned agent or a new agent, that over the last less than 4 years, you've closed over 400 transactions? I bet there's not a lot of people raising their hands right now. And if you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel. Nick, this has been gold, man. This has been great. I'm glad you reached out to us. What would be your parting thoughts?
Yeah, I would say I think a lot of people hear the numbers that I have done and either think it's unattainable or something that they can't do. But I promise you, if I was able to get there and I was able to do it, anyone can do it. It's about just having the right mindset, number one. And I know it's pretty cliche, but having the right mindset and then actually understanding a game plan and acting on the game plan. Figuring out what's going to work for you, what's working for others, because if it's working for others, there's an opportunity for it to work for you as long as you put the work into it. What is that? What one or two things are you going to go all in on to really make this industry work for you and to capitalize on helping as many families as you possibly can and inevitably making as much income as you can to support yourself or your family. So get really clear on your daily schedule and an actual game plan. And if you don't have one, find a coach, find someone who has a game plan, find someone in your local market who's done it at a high level and is willing to share and have you follow. At a minimum, find a coach or find some type of system to get plugged into so that you know exactly what to do so there's no wasted time, and stick with it. Do it like your life depends on it, because it does. The life that you want to live is right across the street of where you're at right now. And if you just put in the time and energy into it and know what to do, you'll get there.
Words of wisdom by a young lad, man. I appreciate that. It's good. It's good to hear that because I feel like we need more professionals just like you in the industry. So you've already mentioned where you're most active, Instagram and Facebook. I'm looking at your Instagram, Nick Harris underscore Realtor. Uh, Same on Facebook.
Yep. So you should be able to find me, Nick Harris. There's a lot of us. I would definitely go to Instagram. Everything's routed to Facebook from there as well. So I would say Instagram is definitely the one source. Feel free to reach out, send me a message. Let me know you listen to the podcast so I know, what we can talk about. And if you have any questions, happy to help.
Last question. Any other way to connect with you besides Instagram and Facebook?
I don't mind if people text me. So my phone number is 248-875-2299. That is my personal cell phone. So be aware of time of day but I'm completely open to having a conversation. Just send me a text message and let's connect.
I love it. And if you did listen to this whole thing, I'd love to know, first of all, what was it? What's one of the strategies that Nick offered today that you feel like you're going to stop what you're doing today and implement? Because there was a bunch of them, very tangible, executable strategies. And also, if you're an agent listening to this and you're like, man, I'd love to share like Nick is sharing and I'm having success, just reach out to us. You might have to send us a handful of messages. You might have to send us a video. I don't know. But reach out because that's important to us at Lab Coat Agents, which is really helping just level up the industry. Nick, it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you sharing with our audience today, and wish you nothing but the best of luck, man. I imagine in the next few years that you're going to cross over into the 1K plus and keep on churning and burning. So best of luck to you, brother, and keep crushing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you having me on.